A quick note before we hop into today's video. When you go to enter the Go Battle League today, you're going to notice with the 3 regular formats, Great, Ultra, and Master, there's a cup called Preview Cup. This is an experimental cup where they are getting beta feedback on the new PvP system. This system is by no means complete, it's still in development, but the cup is here, so if people want to try out the new system and provide feedback, they will have the ability to do so. If you care about your elo, if you're looking to legend push, I'd probably recommend sticking to one of the regular leagues, but I figured I'd pop in here and let you guys know what that is if you do see it. Alright, now back to the video. Hey everybody, HomeSliceHenry here, and at long last, I finally have an incredible IV Galarian Corsula. I was running a pretty okay Galarian Corsula for quite some time, but thanks to the sustainability event where Galarian Corsula was available as a spawn on routes, I was able to get the rank 14 Sunglasses Corsula. I of course had to max it instantly, and today, it absolutely terrorized the Open Grey League. I ran a team with Galarian Corsula, Togekiss, and Shadow Mudbomb Quagsire, and went super positive, including a 5-0 on my very first set. So without further ado, let's hop into the matches, and in game number 1, we pick up a pretty solid lead, Galarian Corsula into Shadow Primeape. Shadow Primeape is known for one thing, and that is massive damage output. Rage Fist will hit for super effective damage, but my Galarian Corsula is so bulky that I actually survived that very comfortably. Now, I fire off the Nightshade as soon as I get it to guarantee that I will outpace, and the moment I have shield advantage, it's time to send in Togekiss. Togekiss is a very flexible Pokemon if you're up a little bit of energy. I shield a boosted Ice Punch, but unfortunately, I can't do anything as my opponent sends in Aegislash. Aegislash is arguably the hardest check to Togekiss in the entire game. I can throw Aura Sphere after Aura Sphere, and unfortunately, Aegislash is just simply not going to care. I farm up till right before their back-to-back charge attacks, because my switch timer should be available. I switch into Quagsire, and I have to hope that I caught the Gyro Ball. If this isn't a Gyro Ball catch, I've lost the game. Aegislash changes to Blade form, it's the Gyro Ball, and that is a massive catch for Quagsire. I put up the shield as now Aegislash will go for the Shadow Ball. Aegislash is going to pivot out, and in the back is a Shadow Waterfall Empoleon. I fire off the Mud Bomb. Mud Bomb is great for moments like this. They no shield, and down goes Empoleon. In comes Shadow Primeape. Shadow Primeape unable to get the farm down. They're forced to fire off the Rage Fist to win charge attack priority. The Quagsire gets KO'd, but now I can send in Galarian Corsula. And this Corsula is going to be such a problem for the Aegislash to deal with. The Astonishes are shredding them. The moment they fire off a charge attack at me, they're going to switch to Blade form, and then I can just knock them out with the Aura Sphere. They know it's over, and we take the game 1 win. Hopping into game number 2, picking up a very nice lead, Galarian Corsula into Shadow Talonflame. Shadow Talonflame honestly struggles against Galarian Corsula quite a bit. My opponent safe switches into Empoleon, and again, this is where Mud Bomb Shadow Quagsire is going to shine. Because normally, Quagsire can't really do a lot of damage to Empoleon. Stone Edge, Aqua Tail are both resisted, but with Mud Bomb, I'm able to inflict massive super effective damage. You do sacrifice quite a lot of coverage by not running the Stone Edge, but I felt that Mud Bomb was more often than not useful. Back in comes the Talonflame. I'm able to make an Aqua Tail as well. I intentionally overfarmed to put myself 2 off of the Aqua Tail to pressure a shield off of my opponent, and they can't even farm down. They're forced to fire off energy. They're almost assuredly going for a flame charge, but they actually don't have it. Instead, they go for a fly. In the back, my opponent reveals their final Pokemon is a Volt Switch Fortress. This is a pretty bad spot to be in with a Togekiss in the back, but this is where the bulk of Galarian Corsula is going to shine. I get to fire off back-to-back Nightshades. Their Volt Switches and Rock Tombs are going to basically do very minimal damage. My opponent has already lost like 90% of their Fortress. They Rock Tomb, I pivot into the Togekiss, and I know this is only a Sand Tomb. Sand Tomb is just not going to cut it here. I know Shield Sand Tomb is double resisted. In comes the Shadow Talonflame. They have energy, but it's just simply too little too late. I fire off the Psyshock, Talonflame puts up the shield, Talonflame undertaps. I assume this is where they'll finally reveal they have Flame Charge, and they do. But unfortunately, there's just no way for them to farm down. Opponent sees the writing on the wall, and concedes the match. We get the worst case lead in game number 3, Galarian Corsula into Diggersby. I save switch into Togekiss, and so far my opponent does not have a strong answer. They stay in with the Diggersby, go for the Fire Punch, and then they're going to pivot into their own Togekiss. However, I should still be in a pretty good spot here because I'm up quite a bit of energy. And Psyshock is going to do more damage to them than Fire Punch did to me. So now I'm pretty confident that I will be able to make a play for Switch Advantage. And Switch Advantage is massive. That means the Diggersby is no longer going to be on my Corsola and instead on my Shadow Quagsire. I farm up, fire off the Psyshock. Psyshock is going to be shielded, but I get the sneak as my opponent fires off their energy, and that should allow me to get a full peck farm down. My opponent actually decides to pivot out, revealing that they have a Shadow Bug Bite Fortress in the back. But trying to Bug Bite down a Togekiss, even at low HP, is a pretty tall task. I'm able to make not one, but 2 Aura Spheres, and this should just about threaten a knockout. My opponent puts up the shield. I actually decide to stay in and let myself get farmed down, because I want to retain the ability to switch the moment Diggersby hits the field. I just didn't want to switch lock the Corsola and then have the Diggersby farm up to 100 energy. There's the pivot into Diggersby, but I can instantly answer with the Shadow Quagsire, and by not switch locking myself before they send in the Diggersby, that proves to be a game-winning decision. As now, I should be able to make the back-to-back Aqua Tails. They've already taken a little bit of damage throughout the course of this game, so the Aqua Tails will be able to secure the knockout. This one ends up being on charge attack priority as well. Aqua Tail KOs the Diggersby. They have basically no HP remaining on either remaining Pokemon, so they will resign the match. We see a mirror lead in the next match, Galarian Corsula into Galarian Corsula. Honestly, I'm not quite sure what the best way to play out the mirror is. Now, I typically will lose charge attack priority in the mirror, so I don't end up throwing right away. Instead, I decide to just let it go. Nightshade lands, that does do some pretty considerable damage, but now I can hit back hard with a Nightshade of my own. Nightshade is shielded up by the Corsola, and unfortunately, it does look like I do get farmed down there. I was very close to a second Nightshade, but not quite enough HP remaining. I send in the Quagsire. I'm gonna no-shield, because I'm trusting in 2-shield Togekiss to win this game. They fire off the Nightshade, that does do considerable damage. My opponent pivots into their own Quagsire, and suddenly I'm wondering if my opponent's actually running the same team as me. I was doing these battles live on stream, and I hadn't lost yet with the team up until this point, so it stands to reason someone may have been watching and seen, you know what, this is a good team, we'll try it. And now, unfortunately, I'm probably facing a mirror match. But I can farm up a lot, take the knockout with Aqua Tail, and the moment my opponent brings in their Togekiss, I fire off the Aqua Tail. Aqua Tail is going to do some pretty considerable damage, and now I can bring in my own. Psyshock is going to do quite a lot here, but I'm hoping that I'm still going to have the health advantage, because if I do, then I'm just going to fully commit to a farm down. I'm just going to keep farming. There's the switch, and they send in Corsola. Their Corsola was very close to a move, but I already have back-to-back Psyshocks. They shield the Astonished Registers, but they're not going to get their move. Psyshock will take the KO. This is going to be close. Will it be a simultaneous knockout? Yes, it will, but my Quagsire is still alive in the back, so the win streak continues. We move to the next match, and I pick up a pretty nice lead, Galarian Corsula into Altaria. I just have to keep the Altaria off my Shadow Quagsire this game, and I should be in a pretty good spot. My opponent tries for a Power Gem catch onto Tinkaton, but I'm able to save my energy and send in the Shadow Quagsire. Quagsire has a pretty dominant matchup in a Tinkaton if you run Mud Bomb. However, I am completely walled by Altaria, so I actually have pretty strong incentive to not actually knock out the Tinkaton. Instead, I decide to just commit to a farm down and just let the Quagsire go, because my Quagsire's energy is completely useless into the Altaria. I'm just sacrificing that Quagsire in exchange for extra farm on the Galarian Corsula. Now Corsola has a massive energy head start. My opponent thinks about it, and they send in Altaria. Altaria is going to take some pretty considerable damage from Power Gem. I fire off Power Gem, shield comes up. They do not have to shield there, but if they no-shielded, it would have put them pretty low. I'm very okay no-shielding my bulky Corsola. I'm able to make a second Power Gem, and this really puts the pressure on my opponent. Are they going to be giving up the final shield? They do give up the final shield, so whatever they have in back really does not want to see energy from Galarian Corsula. I know that I can easily survive a Sky Attack, so I will no-shield the first. In the back is a Centiskorch. What is this? Oh my goodness, the spice. You gotta respect this trainer. Running Centiskorch on a Legend push. Oh my goodness. At this point, I'd completely forgotten what Centiskorch's moveset is. It turns out it has Lunge, but unfortunately for them, Lunge does not prevent me from farming down, and we're able to get the win. We move to the next match, and it's the same leads as before, this time Corsola into Shadow Altaria. I really don't like Power Gemming instantly in case of a catch, so I will overfarm slightly and then go for the Power Gem. Power Gem doesn't pick up the one-hit knockout here, but it does do some pretty massive damage onto the Shadow Altaria. Altaria hits back with a Sky Attack. I'm very comfortable no-shielding, and I'm just going to commit to the farm down. Corsola gets the farm down, Altaria falls just shy of the Sky Attack, and when they bring in Empoleon, at this point, I'm already thinking that I've won this game. Nightshade is going to be no-shielded. Empoleon's going to have to throw, or I'm going to make it to another Nightshade. I have a very bulky Corsola now. You are never farming me down. Hydro will take the knockout. In comes the Mud Bomb Quagsire, and I'll never know what my opponent had in the back because they immediately resign the match. We pick up a terrible lead in the next match, leading Corsola into Furret. I save switch into Togekiss. But this is a pretty big core breaker for this team. Furret is very strong into both the Corsola and the Shadow Quagsire. My opponent ends up firing off a Swift before sending in Jellicent. I do end up missing some Psyshock bubbles, but luckily Psychic bubbles are one of the few charge stacks where you can miss bubbles and it still isn't excellent. So even though I usually miss a few bubbles per Psyshock, I'm still in a pretty okay spot. My opponent farms up to 5 hexes. They should survive 2 Astonishes, which means they're going to make a Surf into the Corsola. Surf, while it is chip damage, it's not going to do a lot. It's not like a Shadow Ball, so I do feel pretty okay letting this go. Most Furret in the Great League are now on Brick Break, so hopefully that means they don't have Trailblaze for double super effective damage into the Quagsire. I stay in with the Corsola, fire off the Power Gem, get a shield from my opponent, but when they throw on poor timing and throw when they get to 7, I'm quite worried that they have Trailblaze, and they do. I pivot out, in comes the Quagsire. Unfortunately, I'm always going to be behind by a turn here because I did get the 1-turn switch. So I put up the shield as they go for the Swift. I'm just going to try and farm them into Mud Bomb range. I go for the Mud Bomb, and they catch onto Wigglytuff. And unfortunately, ABA normal, there's not really a lot that my Corsola could do in this matchup. I farm up, fire off another Mud Bomb, but unfortunately, this will not be enough to secure the KO. My opponent does put up the shield. I'm able to make a 3rd Mud Bomb, but unfortunately, it's still just never going to be enough. Wigglytuff is too bulky. A team like my opponent's would have been pretty strong last Open Great League rotation, but now that Tinkaton is a top meta threat, it's going to be a lot less effective. Because Furret, it just has no play into Tinkaton whatsoever, even if you run Brick Break, and obviously Wigglytuff doesn't either. So teams like that should end up fading over the course of this week, just because there's a lot of Tinkaton out there, and they just have absolutely no counterplay. Speaking of Tinkaton, we lead Corsola into Tinkaton in the next match. Tinkaton, now that it does have Gigaton Hammer, is able to beat Galarian Corsula in the zeros. But the good news for the Corsola player is that you're able to get the Tinkaton very low, so even though you don't win the matchup, you can then farm it down with Togekiss, and that energy should go very far into their backline. Nightshade is going to connect, my opponent pivots out, and they send in for Alligator. This is the non-shadow for Alligator. They can survive a Nightshade, but it will still do quite a lot of damage. Nightshade lands, in comes Togekiss, and now I have a very tough call to make. Are they going to go for the Ice Beam? I say no. I call the bait, and no shielding the Hydro Cannon is a very big swing of momentum. Now I can fire off the Aura Sphere, winning charge stack priority, and denying that Hydro Cannon energy as they end up no shielding. My opponent now reveals their final Pokemon in the back is Jellicent, and this is not an amazing Pokemon for my backline to see. However, my Quagsire has Mud Bomb, and Mud Bomb is going to be a key contributor to winning me this game. In comes Quagsire, they farm up to 6 hexes, and I will put up the shield. They go for the Shadow Ball. I'm going to farm up a massive amount of energy and go for an Aqua Tail bait. If they call the bait here, all could be lost, but they put up the shield. But I'm not done. I'm doubling down. I'm going for the double Aqua Tail bait. Aqua Tail number 2 gets shield number 2, and now I'm actually able to outpace the Jellicent. I needed both baits to have a chance to outpace and make it to the Mud Bomb. So now I'm barely able to outpace. The Mud Bomb will be reached. Mud Bomb knocks out the Jellicent, and with that, this game is going to end in a win. As back in comes Tinkaton, we make the Mud Bomb, and Shadow Quagsire put the team on its back there. The double Aqua Tail bait into the double Mud Bomb secures the win. We've got a very cool lead from the opponent in the next match. Galarian Corsula into Shelgon. Shelgon has relentless pacing. Every 10 turns, it's able to spam out Twister. While Twister does not two-shot Galarian Corsula, with the Dragon Breath, it will come very, very close. I farm up, fire off the Nightshade. Nightshade won't take the knockout, but it's going to be getting Shelgon low. Shelgon is known for many things. It's not known for its bulk. I'm a little worried that if I no shield, I will get Dragon Breath down here by the Shelgon. So I put up the shield. I look to overfarm, go for the Nightshade, and they make a very nice catch onto Tinkaton. Tinkaton Save Swap is something that this team is very well equipped to handle. I'm going to throw 3 Astonishes and then send in the Quagsire. It doesn't really matter what my opponent throws here, even if it is a Gigaton Hammer. It does truly outrageous resisted damage, but thankfully I'm able to survive. I can now farm up 5 Mud Shots, win charge stack priority, and Mud Bomb is guaranteed to secure the KO. Their Shelgon should be one off a move, but they don't send in Shelgon. Instead, they reveal their final Pokemon in the back is Quagsire's worst nightmare in Gourgeist. I need to pivot out. I'm completely walled. Timer comes up. In comes Corsola. I make it to the Nightshade, and they catch on to Shelgon. But they have a ton of energy on Shelgon. They kind of have to shield this. So the final shield does come up. Shelgon gets a huge farm down. And now, I have a bit of an interesting call to make. What do I send in here? I decide to bring in Togekiss. My opponent waits the turn, Pet goes through as they unleash Flamethrower. Flamethrower will do considerable damage. Can I get the farm down before they make their next? Yes, I can. And with that farm down, this game is a win. My opponent's now at 100 energy, so I have a very safe play. Psyshock into an instant switch. If they don't end up firing off the Seed Bomb right away, I just fire off my Aqua Tail and win the game, and if they do throw the Seed Bomb, then they don't have the back-to-back moves, and I can peck down with the Togekiss and take the win. Hopping into the final match, we pick up a pretty okay lead, Galarian Corsula into Clodsire. My opponent's gonna safe switch, they send in Feraligatr, but this is not the Feraligatr that we're used to seeing. This is the Shadow Feraligatr. Shadow Feraligatr deals a lot more damage, but the good news for me is that Shadow Feraligatr takes a lot more damage as well. Feraligatr lands the Hydro Cannon, I fire off the Nightshade, and I'm expecting it's going to be a Dark Flyer in the back. So I'm just going to stay in with the Corsola. This new Corsola is so bulky that even after the Hydro lands, they can't farm down, and my opponent is instead forced to fire off a Hydro, and this sets up a nasty one-shield farm down for Togekiss. Usually the team has a Galarian Moltres in the back, so up this much energy on Togekiss, I should basically just be in a strictly winning position. In comes the Clodsire, I fire off the Psyshock, and Psyshock will hit for some pretty considerable damage. I farm up, pivot, into the Quagsire, in the back is Mandibuzz. This game could be a little bit tricky. Mandibuzz is a lot bulkier than Moltres, and I don't have Stone Edge. I fire off the Aqua Tail, Mandibuzz shields, Mandibuzz resigns, presumably thinking that I had Stone Edge, but I did not, so we escape a little bit there. I don't know if we were actually going to win that game without Stone Edge, but my opponent thought we had Stone Edge, so it turns out the threat of Stone Edge might actually be deadlier than Stone Edge itself. All in all, I had amazing results with this team. Across the battles that I played with it, I think I ended up going like 11-4 or 12-4. So the team started off very hot with the 5-0 set and continued to produce really nice results. Being ABA weak to Furret was a little bit tricky in the game where I led into a Furret, obviously, but I don't think Furret leads should be too common considering the fact that Tinkaton is a new meta threat, and it's very difficult to build a Furret lead team that isn't ABA weak to Tinkaton. And this is coming from someone who really likes Furret. I still think Furret is a viable Pokemon, but I think it's very difficult to try and run those Furret XAB style teams when Tinkaton is on the loose because you can't ever really generate enough of an energy advantage with Furret to beat a Tinkaton just because that's how bulky Tinkaton is. Tinkaton, for example, is slightly bulkier than Medicham, and we know how absurdly bulky Medicham is. Medicham just tanks neutral moves for days. So the fact that a high-rank Tinkaton is slightly bulkier than that just shows the degree of bulk that we're dealing with. But enough about Tinkaton, we gotta talk about the other bulky Pokemon, my new Sunglasses Galarian Corsula. I really don't like many of the costume Pokemon. I don't dislike them per se, but they don't really speak to me until Sunglasses Corsula. I think my favorite costumed Pokemon, there is a very select few, and Sunglasses Corsula is one of them. The moment I saw this event announced, I knew I had to go out, spend the hours grinding the routes and try and get a good one. This one I actually didn't even get from the wild. I was doing trades on Trade Friday and ended up getting the 2-14-14. So even though we didn't end up getting the good IV from the wild, we had to get it the traditional way from a trade. I'm still so happy to finally have like a very premium IV Galarian Corsula because we saw in a lot of games, Galarian Corsula ended up getting very low, and there was a lot of scenarios where opponents just couldn't quite ever farm us down, and that extra bulk really made a difference. Thank you so much for watching today's video. If you enjoyed watching it, please do help support the channel by leaving a like on the video and subscribe to the channel if you have not. And an extra special thank you, as always, to our channel members here on YouTube. The support you guys provide to the channel is so appreciated. So thank you guys oh so very much. And until next time, I've been HomeSliceHenry.